Today's story, Mary and Joseph were traveling and they had to take a long, long trip and they went to Bethlehem. But this is a tough time in the government because the emperor was not a very nice person. And he had forced people to return to wherever they originally came from. So if you came from New Jersey and you were now living in Oxford, Ohio, you would have to go back to New Jersey to register. And that's kind of what happened to Mary and Joseph. They had to return to Bethlehem, and it was a long journey. And when they arrived, there was no place for this baby to be born. Everything was full. All the hostels and the renting of rooms, and there was nothing. So what do you think they had to do? Remember? We read this story a long time ago. They ended up going to a hotel back then, and they said, I'm sorry, we don't have any room for people, especially if somebody's going to have a baby. Well, they ended up going to a stable. A stable was where the animals kept. So let's see what happens as we move along. The man in power was an emperor named Caesar Augustus, and he wanted everyone to go back to their hometown to be counted. So if you came from Cincinnati, you'd have to go back to Cincinnati. If you came from Indianapolis, you'd have to go back to Indianapolis. What a pain for a family. This was a very hard trip, and they had to go back to Bethlehem, walking all the way from where they were living, which was Nazareth. And Mary was going to have a baby very soon, and you can't delay that. Bethlehem was bustling, very busy when they arrived, and that night, the baby Jesus decided to be born. She wrapped him in cloth and laid him in a manger, and the manger was a wooden form, like a box, where they put the hay for the animals to eat, because there was no room for them. This was a tough time. But do you think they were happy? Yes, they were. This is the time when we're planning for the future of the holiday. What are you going to do? And Mary and Joseph were happy that they found a quiet, calm place with animals for their baby to be born. And this is what we call joy. When something happens, when you're afraid and something happens and it's good, wow, what joy. And we all run into things that are difficult in our lives. Maybe your pet dies. Maybe a family friend moves away, far away. And these are things that bring us sadness. But then you stop and you think, there's got to be some joy there. What can I do? How can we find joy in loving Jesus? And that's where we have a long journey, a whole lifetime of finding joy for others as well as ourselves. This was a special time for Mary and Joseph. And now that you're in church school, you're discovering that Jesus can bring us joy. Jesus can bring us joy in friendship. Jesus can bring us joy when we help someone. Jesus can bring us joy when we are afraid and we discover it's not so scary after all, and making decisions. And this is why we're in church school as youngsters, because we're learning how to make decisions that bring joy to others and maybe a little bit of joy to ourselves. So anytime we have hard times, we stop and think, you know, life's not so good. I have people who love me. I have a God that loves me, and I can do this. I can rejoice and be happy because I know that things will be good and life will be good. And in church, you'll see in our service, if you're watching with your parents, that we're lighting candles. And we're going to end up with 4. The period of waiting will be over on Christmas Day. So we have some waiting to do. And when we are waiting, what are we doing? We're praying. We're thanking people. We're buying gifts. We're sharing. And we're thinking, God is good. Jesus was born so that we could be good people too. So think about the future, think about others, and during this time when we're apart, don't forget that somebody, somewhere that you can't see, still loves you.